James Day, public television pioneer and chairman of the CUNY TV Advisory Board, passed away in April 2008. His legacy includes the series Day at Night, which aired for 130 episodes beginning in 1973. The program features interviews with many of the great thinkers and achievers of the 20th century. These 30-year-old programs have been restored. The interviews remain fresh and relevant today, exploring issues that are still important to society. Showing them again is CUNY TV's tribute to Jim and his contributions to public television.
Moore comes out in round 11 and sends in a ripping right to the head of Yvonne Durrell. Powerful straight right-hand punches by Archie Moore send Durrell down for the second time. Referee Jack Sharkey picks up the count. Durrell is up at the count of 8, but he's in desperate trouble. Moore moves in to finish it. And down goes Durrell for the third time. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's out. Archie Moore has successfully defended his World Light Heavyweight Championship. One of the most...
Sports writers have a favorite word for Archie Moore. It's venerable. For more than a quarter of a century, he fought in the prize ring, winning bouts against fighters half his age, defending his title at a time when he was long past what is considered the prime years for a fighter. In 1952, he won the light heavyweight title from Joey Maxim. He was nearly 40 at the time. His exact age is known only to him, and he likes to keep it a mystery. He defended the title against all comers and the depredations of middle age for nearly a decade. Several times he tried for the heavyweight title, moving his weight up and down as easily as his age, but each time the title eluded him. Archie Moore has successfully mixed fighting with a welter of other interests, business, lecturing, acting, but his overriding interest is youth, and an organization he founded in San Diego called ABC, Any Boy Can, through which he seeks to help young people build a better future. Archie, in the years that you fought, did you have to be angry to win a fight? Did you have to be angry at somebody or something?
Jim, I was not angry regarding my opponent. I was angry, however, in many cases, many instances, for having to earn my living in this manner. I was angry at what people had done to the minority. Me being a minority, I was angry. But I was not vengeful in this sense. All I wanted to do was to commercialize upon a thing that now had been
And you got
made
paid
legal.
for working out your anger against injustice.
Of course.
You've been quoted as saying that you weren't a vicious man, never felt vicious about your opponent.
Not overly, not overly. I was vicious, I must admit, in a subtle way. I did things as Jim Washington described this morning. I did things, I made hard things look so easy.
Yeah.
Until this influenced him
Yeah.
to become a boxer.
Yeah. Well, making boxing look easy took a great deal of skill, though.
It takes a great deal of skill, and skills comes only from practice, repetition.
You've, again, been quoted as saying that you were lucky to be endowed with certain qualities which helped you as a fighter. A quick brain,
Yes, my mind.
quick reflexes like a cat, I think, and courage. Those are the three that I recall that you said you were endowed with. And I think, as a matter of fact, you compared it with Aesop, who was one of your favorites, isn't he?
Well, let me strike out courage because I was frightened
Were you?
like any other youngster in this sense, because fighting was so awesome. The great fighters before me were so awesome. And I was a youth, but I wasn't really that afraid, because you have to get your feet wet before you learn how to swim. And so, after getting into it, I realized that I had much more than the average person, even from the beginning, because I had naturally heavy hands, and I had a very quick mind, and hopefully I have some of it left.
When did you begin fighting?
I began boxing, organized boxing, when I was 19 years old. But I had much experience before then, long before then, because my first encounter was with a youth in Mississippi at the age of 7 years.
7 years?
7 years.
Yes.
And I decided then that I would need to know how to fight in order to prevent this type of effrontery from always coming up.
And at 7, you felt that you already were conscious of injustices, of discrimination,
Right.
that kind of thing?
Right, not discrimination, but I was made aware that there was something that was wrong at the age of 7. And in order to be strong, you had to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
This
Archie,
is
I'm a
my
little
thought.
puzzled when you talk about the age of 7, because you're either 61 or 58 right now. Why is there a difference? Why does your mother say you're one age and you say you're another?
I don't deny anything.
I see.
If I deny something, then I might get myself in trouble.
So she says you're prepared to accept what she says. Is this your mother? Because you did leave at a very early age. Your mother and father, I guess, left you, and they divorced, and you went to live with an aunt, who really, I guess, in a true sense,
raised me.
was
She
was your mother. Is that who you're referring to?
She's alive today.
Is she?
My Aunt Willie. And I love her. I love my mother too. I love my dad. But
You've kept in touch with your mother and dad then over the years.
Oh, indeed, I'm going to see my mother very shortly. But anyway, I never deny what age my mother quotes. And
But the age you quote is the age you believe yourself to be?
well, I know my age.
You do.
And I befuddle a lot of people who are inquiring about my age constantly, and that keeps me in the news some way.
It's been good then from
It's
that
been
point
good,
of view.
yes.
So at the age of 7, why you took on fighting of a sort, but was, you say, 18 before you took on professional. Was
Right.
your childhood a reasonably happy when you grew up in St. Louis with your aunt and uncle?
Oh, my childhood was made very happy because of an understanding auntie and uncle, and they gave me what they could. They gave me the best that they could, and that was sufficient for me. And I grew up with good precepts taught me. And my uncle, unfortunately, passed away.
When you were a teenager, didn't you?
Yes, I was a teenager. And I thought, well, this is a good chance to get out and show my masculinity. And so, but I did it in a negative way, and I wound up in the reform school.
Yeah, you spent 22 months in the reform
22
school.
months in a reform school.
What,
But I learned
What did it teach
good
you?
lessons. I learned that it was good to know what respect was. Know how to respect yourself first, and then you'll be in a better position to respect other people. And then you'll learn what mutual respect is. This I learned.
You didn't respect yourself at this point in
No,
your
I didn't.
life.
No, I didn't.
When you got out, you joined the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Yes, I did.
Did
And
this-
then I went into something that I had made up in my mind that I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a professional fighter.
You did.
And knowing that the rigors that you have to undergo in becoming a professional fighter, you had to have the body to go along with it. And so I began to develop my body at a tremendous rate of excessive hard work. I began to shovel gravel out of a ditch and throw them about 12 feet high into a truck. That I used to chop trees down to build up a tremendous forearm and muscles in the shoulders. And that added to the punching power.
Why did you choose fighting? Was it the best way open to you to earn money?
This was one way to open money, to get hold of lump sum money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be having a menial job, because at that particular time, blacks were not having great success in the educational field.
Yeah.
If a man sought to go into education, the highest he could hope for in that field was to be a principal. And
Did that field attract you at all?
no,
Education?
it did not, because I wanted money. I wanted something
Why?
that I could move with.
Move with it.
I thought money would be the thing that I could recompense my Annie and my family, if I ever should have one, and try to make a shortcut for the time that I had lost. But there is no way of making a shortcut, because
You've learned that since. There is no shortcut.
time takes its toll.
Well, you stayed at it for a long time. That is,
I
for
did
boxing.
stay at boxing a long time. And the thing I wanted to do, the thing I decided to do, when I set my goal so high that I knew I had a hard climb to reach, because I set my goal from that of a boy 7 years old to that of a world champion in boxing.
You know that's where you wanted to go.
That was the height that I wanted.
Who were the boxers or who were the men that you most admired when you were growing up as a youngster? Were they boxers?
The man that influenced me most by name was Kid Chocolate. And he was a featherweight champion. And Jack Johnson was a man that I really admired in boxing, because I'd heard of Jack Johnson. This was the greatest, and the greatest heavyweight, in my opinion, today. The all-time great heavyweight champion is Jack Johnson, in my opinion, because he knew boxing. He knew some things that he must have invented himself, moves, skills that he did, and his punching power was terrific. And so that, what man reminds me of Jack Johnson in this sense is George Foreman, the current heavyweight champion.
Yeah. You once described yourself as belonging to the era of Jack Dempsey. I don't think you meant that literally, but perhaps figuratively. That did you feel that your fighting, your style of fighting, was of the era of Johnson, Dempsey?
No, of Johnson. Johnson was more of a professional, technical fighter. He knew how to parry and block punches. He knew how to spin a man. He knew how to work on the inside. He was an all-around fighter.
Yeah.
He knew the speed. He was deceptive in his movements, and his speed was subtle.
I want to ask you about two fights, Archie. One is the fight with Yvonne Durrell, and we saw the knockdown of that in the 11th round in the opening of the program. And I want to perhaps see a little bit more of that, because this was one of the most dramatic fights you ever fought. Dramatic because he knocked you down, what, 3 times in early rounds. It looked like a sure defeat for you, and you won that fight in 11 rounds. What I want to ask you about it is where do those resources come from? What kept you going?
Well, this was an accumulation of talents and discoveries that I had made when I was young, and how to utilize these defensive tactics. And so I had to bring everything that I could reach back into my memory.
I mean, you went way back in your memory for those things.
For these things, in which to prevent him from knocking me out. And then after I had somewhat got my head clear, then I knew I had to go along the build-up line, the build-up with points to points to points, until I could set him up into the area where I could finish him off.
Yeah.
And this is the way life is sometimes. You get knocked down, but you keep trying. You get up, you get knocked down again. You keep trying. You try another angle, you try another way, until finally you hit the main road.
Yeah, but that takes, it's a mental attitude as well as a physical stamina. That is,
Yes.
your mind has to be.
Yes, Jim, your
Fix
mind,
it.
you have to build your mind up. You have to build your mind up. Every day, you must live for that day. You must build your mind up. You're going to renew your life. You're not going to make a great discovery of something. Only you're going to take this old body and set it aside and put new life into it through the medium of your mind. And then you begin to discover that you can do things. You can do things very well.
The other fight I wanted to ask you about is the fight with Cassius Clay, now Muhammad Ali, of course. And that was just about your last major fight. And you were pushing 50, late 40s, weren't you, when you fought?
I deny nothing.
All right. What I wanted to ask you about that is we talked with Muhammad Ali, and he talked about the performance that he puts on. What was it? It'll be more in 4. Wasn't that something of that sort with you? Did this psychological warfare have any effect upon, did it have the effect he wanted upon you?
I know that what he was trying to do to me because he learned from me, because I taught him as a youth, 19 years.
Did you?
I knew what he was trying to do to me, and I almost laughed in his face. Matter of fact, I wanted to slap his face at the weigh-in. But I mean, I would have probably lost it right then. But I felt like slapping his face.
Yeah.
But he's such a fine person. He is such a fine person. And he has done more for boxing than any one single individual in the history of boxing. He's brought those multi-million-dollar gates into the front now. Now, it will take a very heavy-minded person to keep that fighting game up to the level where it is now after he leaves the scene of fighting.
In 1941, I believe it was, you became very ill right in the middle of your career. You were in your late 20s, which was the prime of a boxer's fighting life, I suppose, with perforated ulcers. You went in the hospital, complications, and you came out, and the sports writers described you as looking 100 years old at the age of 28. And you'd gone down to, what, 110 pounds?
Yes, I had. Well, this was...
Now, that would seem to be the end of your fighting career, and it turned out to be the beginning. What did you do?
Well, I had a lovely auntie who had taught me some precepts when I was a little boy. And we come from a Christian family, of course. And we felt that depending upon that unseen power, which is the love, you know, of Christ, we thought that if this could be utilized and depended upon, I would surely pull through. And I began to pray as I never prayed before. And I asked the Lord, I said, I know that I am not too young to die, because sometimes you take them from the womb. However, my auntie and my niece, which was a little girl, had nobody to depend on but me. And I said, I have to live. I've got to live because I have to take care of them. And I said, I've got to live. And that's the last thing I remember saying until 5 days later. I woke up and I was saying...
You were in a coma for 5 days. Yeah.
I was saying, I've got to live. I've got to live. And Jim Washington's mother was right beside me. She said, what do you say? I said, I've got to live. And then I woke up. And there I was, alive. And then it was something like 38 days before I could leave the hospital, but I was determined to walk down the staircase in the county hospital. And I walked down the stairs. This was in 1941. And from that day on, I decided that I would make my life a new life. And from then on, I began to work harder than I'd ever worked before. And I found myself in the challenger's position in 1945, the #1 contender of the world, after having worked on the railroad, washing dishes on the Southern Pacific train. But now I'm in a position to win the championship of the world. However, it was not that easy, because Joey Maxim demanded $100,000 for me to fight him for the championship. And I, somehow or another, got people interested, involved into it to raise this type of money. And when the deal was finally finished, I had won the title. And with the encouragement of a president named Perón over in Argentina, I won the title. And I received $800 for my end of the purse. Maxim had his $100,000, but I had a title. I had something now to reach the world with. I had the modus operandi which to perform.
It took you 10 years from the time you started for that title until you finally fought Maxim and won that title. That must have taken a great deal of patience.
It took patience, and that is
money.
what most people don't have, is patience. And it took money, and most people don't have the money. The masses don't have money.
Yeah. How did Perón figure in this? I didn't know.
Perón figured in this because I went over to his country, and I had a fight over there. And I had a fight, and he brought Evita Peron to the fight, his wife. And he had me come to make an appearance before him the next day. And he told me, he said, I was a light heavyweight boxer at one time myself. And he said, you're the greatest fighter I've ever seen in my life. He said, why aren't you the champion of the world? And I said, well, it's probably politics. And he said, well, I don't understand politics. and this was, you know, very, the thing he should have said, because he was a great politician, and I think he is probably the greatest politician in the history of boxing, in the history of politics, because he's made a comeback after being away for 18 years. Now, then he said, if you ever need any help and I can be of service to you, come over to my country anytime. And I'm thinking about it.
Thinking about going back.
Thinking about going back.
You retired undefeated, even though the NBA had taken away your title at one point, where they had the National Boxing Association, where they had jurisdiction. But you did retire undefeated. And you turned to youth work.
I turned to youth work, and in this youth work I found out that there's much to be done. And in my youth work I consulted with my good friend Jim Washington, who is the head of the Washington Investigation Company, in
which you now have an interest.
Well, I have a small interest in it, and I have a big interest in it, you know, but I have a small portion of it. And I have an interest in it because Jim Washington is one of my proteges.
He is.
He's one of my proteges who...
Did he come to you? Did your young people come to you? Or?
He came to me when he was 11 years old. And I just mentioned his mother was at my bedside when I was ill. And naturally, you know, the affection that I had for him was beautiful. And it motivated him to become a fighter because he'd seen me box and win so easy till he thought it was easy. So he came to me. Now he is running this Washington Investigation Services. And I feel that he should get the big contracts that he is now seeking.
Have you had lots of youngsters who have had successes of that sort? It's a small...
Washington is the biggest success should he get this contract, because now he's waiting for his clearance. And he should get it. If he doesn't get it, there's gross injustice being done him. But nevertheless, I love this young man. And he's like he was my own son. And he does so well. He has been twice awarded heroism medals. First, he won the Carnegie Award for saving a man who was on fire in a truck and pinned, and when he was a young officer on the police force in San Diego. And he pulled a man out of the San Francisco area here, out of the water here, who was drowning. And
I introduced you by saying the ABC stands for any boy.
Any boy can. But since Women Lib is around now, we had to reconstruct that and say anybody can.
So you take young girls into this?
Young girls too.
You've got an organization in San Diego and one here in
Vallejo.
In Vallejo, in California. What do you do with these young people?
I work with them mentally and physically. I make them ready for their teachers. I make them learnable or teachable.
Are these underprivileged kids?
These are anybody, and anybody is underprivileged when they don't have the type of teaching that I give them.
That teaching is moral teaching?
Moral teaching, and with spiritual values and physical self-defense values. It's a value system. And I teach young people how to do a lot of things in learning. I teach them how to do a lot of things in defense work, in physical defense, defending themselves from the drunks, the dope addicts, the dope pushers, and the hustlers that hang around the pool halls and hang around the schools. We teach the youngsters how to deal with them.
What happens to them when they've been with you for a year, 2 years?
Well, it happens so like if a young man, such as the young man that I work with named Overton Claiborne, he is now electronics engineer. He's joined the Army, and after he does a stint in the Army, he's going to come back and teach electronics because he's motivated. He's been motivated. You see, and this is what I sell, motivation.
That Jamaica on your hat puzzles me. That has nothing to do with ABC, does it?
Yes, it does, because I taught motivation through the medium of ABC in the Jamaican Regiment. I also taught 4 months at...
This was in the Army?
Yes, in the Army.
I see.
I also taught 4 months at Fort Carson, Colorado, under the General James F. Hamlet. He's the first black general that I have worked with. And I worked with his men out there. I had a class of 88 in my first class. I graduated 49 ABC instructors. In the next class, I had 101. I graduated 51.
What brings you the greatest satisfactions these days? The championships behind you now, what do you really get your satisfactions from?
There's nothing sweeter, or there's nothing better than working with youth, because the rewards are greater as a youth worker than they are at getting a great big purse of $100,000 or $200,000.
Yet you support this ABC pretty much by yourself right
Yes,
now,
I
don't
do,
you?
and I make the funds to do it with, but I'm going to seek other sources, other peoples who know that the world needs this. I'm going to talk with Mr. Hurst if I can possibly get his ear, get his attention, and I can show him some things that we can help you young people, and I'll talk with other newspaper editors and owners and publishers.
You've given away quite a bit of the money that you've earned, haven't you? You haven't hung on to all of it.
Well, I don't hang on to money. Money is just a medium.
Yes.
Money is just a medium, you see. The real riches is what you can see that happens, you know, intangibles that you can produce.
What would you most want to be remembered for in your fighting career? A fight? An attitude? Is there one thing that...
Well, Jim, I'd like to be remembered when people say, there goes Archie Moore, or here lies Archie Moore. He was a friend to youth.
That's the important thing to you
That's the
today.
important thing.
You told me that you had a poem. I haven't heard it yet.
Well, when you learn the things that I've learned in life, you know it's time to live before it's time to die. Time to smile before it's time to cry. But it's those people who just won't try that keeps on bothering me. Well, things look bad, but they got to get better if we have enough faith and we all pull together. There ain't enough love in this world for each other. That's what's bothering me. You take a lot of love, mix it with the sunshine, add a big smile. That'll work a wonder sometimes. But if you keep your very best foot forward and start your climb, you'll find it's time to live before it's time to die. Time to smile before it's time to cry. But it's those people who just won't try that keeps on bothering me. Now, every one of us, we've got to do our part. Give of ourselves and let it come from the heart. But it's those people who just won't start that keeps on bothering me. Jim, that's it.
Thank you.